Welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And I want to just tell you of a story that happened a while back. See, Elijah and I, we were taking a course. It was a pastoral training course, and it was in Warner Robins, Georgia, which is about 90 miles from Atlanta. We went to the course once a month, and as we would drive the 90 miles, we would alternate which one of us would drive. One month, I would drive. The next month, see, Elijah would drive. The class began at 9 o'clock, and it ended around 4 or 5. So we would leave from my office, because that was kind of in the path from see, Elijah's house to the place where the class was being held. So we would meet at my office at 7:30 in the morning. It took a little bit under 90 minutes to get there, so we would get there right before 9 o'clock for each class. And on this particular day, see, Elijah was scheduled to drive, and he was there at my office promptly at 7:30. I had gotten to the office earlier, and I was working, and I got wrapped up and bogged down in some stuff. Y'all ever got wrapped up and bogged down in some stuff? It kind of delayed you, and I was trying to finish up. So by the time I got in the car, and by the time we pulled off, it was 7:50 instead of 7:30. So we were running 20 minutes late before we ever pulled off. And as we were driving, after about 15 minutes, we had gotten outside of the city. We were on the expressway. And I was looking at the time, and I realized that we were going to be running late. We were going to get there probably about 9:15, maybe even 9:20. And I told see, Elijah, I said, man, we're running late. We're going to be late for the class, and I just don't like to be late. And I kept reminding see, Elijah of that, and see, Elijah was driving his car. And see, Elijah has a luxury car. It was an older car, but it rolled very smooth and very quiet. And sometimes when you're in certain types of cars, you really cannot tell how fast you're going. You know, if you're in one of them cheap cars, you can be going 50 and it feels like you're going 100. You know, wind blowing and just making a lot of noise. You're feeling every bump in the road. But sometimes some cars, you really cannot tell exactly how fast you were going. But I knew that we were running late. I looked at my watch and looked at the time, and time was ticking away, and I looked at the distance to where we were going, and then I looked at the speed limit sign. The speed limit said 70. And I know that if the speed limit said 70, I knew we could push it to the low 80s before we would risk getting a ticket. And we know we think about this, be honest about it. If you're running late somewhere, you look at the speed limit, even if you're not running late, most of the traffic automatically flows faster than the speed limit. So I looked at the speed limit, which said 70. I looked at our time, I calculated our ETA. I knew that we needed to push that thing to the limit. And I told see, Elijah, we're running late, see, Elijah. See, Elijah just nodded his head as he drove, and so I couldn't tell how fast we were going because his car was so quiet and smooth. So I looked at the speed limit of 70. I checked the time. I calculated our ETA. And then I looked over at the speedometer to see how far above the speed limit we were, and did we need to slow down just so we would not get a ticket, because I had told see, Elijah we were running late. And as I looked at the speedometer, and I looked at see, Elijah read back, and I knew that see, Elijah needed to, and when I told see, Elijah we were running late, what I was saying in code was, you need to put your foot in the tank. You need to put the pedal to the metal. I was telling see, Elijah, we need to push this speed limit to the absolute limit. And I looked at the speed limit that said 70 miles an hour. I checked the time. And then I peeped over at the speedometer to see how far above the speed limit see Elijah had pushed it. And I looked at the speedometer, and the speedometer read 68. And I want to just talk to you today from the subject of 68, under the limit in an over the limit world. 68, under the limit in an over the limit world. See, Elijah was not going to allow me or anything else to stress him out. He knew we were running late, but it wasn't his fault. And I think even if it was his fault, I'm not sure that he would have pushed it much beyond that 68. He was not going to allow me or anyone else or anything else to stress him out. That's a brother point. Don't allow anything or anyone to stress you out. Turn to the person next to you. Those of you watching electronically, turn to the person sitting in the room with you and tell them this: don't allow anyone or anything to stress you out. He was relaxed. He was calm. He was cool. Elizabeth Kinney said this: he who angers you controls you. Whatever in this world angers you, stresses you out, makes you lose your cool, he who angers you controls you. See, Elijah's car, he just got a new one about a month ago. See, Elijah, how many miles did that car have on it when you traded it in? 380,000 miles. 68. See, Elijah didn't stress himself, nor did he stress his car. There is a reason. Was it running good when you traded it in? It was still running good. It was still running smooth because he did not allow anyone or anything to stress him out, nor did he allow it to stress his car out. The world right now is so stressed out. I want to just talk to you about 68, under the limit in an over the limit world. And just from the simple acronym of relax. You need to just relax and slow down, smell the roses, stop burning yourself out, stop killing yourself early, stop worrying yourself to death about some of the stuff that really you ought not to be worried about. You just need to relax. There are 5 letters in the word relax, and I want you to just remember these letters. The first one is simply ara, simply means rest. It's the 4th commandment of the 10 commandments, but it really began in creation when God created the earth, and on the 7th day, he rested. If God has to rest, what about you? What about me? The United Nations International Labor Organization said workers in the United States are putting in more hours than anyone else in the industrialized world. And you don't understand or appreciate that until you travel. If you go through Europe, I remember I was in Barcelona, and it was around noon. Everyone in the whole city had shut down. They shut down at 11 o'clock and come back at 2. But when you look at the health in the U.S., we're number 17th among industrialized nations. We ought to be number 1. If you look at health statistics, the U.S. citizens rank, we all got all this fussing about health plan and health care. The real health care, you ought not to be so stressed out. And we're worried about what kind of plan we have going to the doctor, and number 17th in health among the industrialized world. over in Barcelona, at 11 o'clock, they go home and eat, take a nap, see their wives, then come back to work. In the U.S., we have what's called a working lunch. We don't even stop to eat. Jesus had to tell his disciples, look, come on, get away. You don't even have time enough to eat. See, even in ministry, most ministers oftentimes will get burnt out because they do not use the first hour and relax. They don't stop to rest. This is a typical scenario is in this story. It says, before Barbara Aguilera left her job as a director in American Express's small business unit, she was on the verge of burnout. Aside from logging upwards of 50 hours per week, she had a 90-minute commute to and from work and had to be reachable to clients nearly 24/7. The breaking point came when her son started kindergarten and she did not have time to wait with him at the bus stop. The hamster on the wheel analogy is the best way to describe how I felt, she says. It's a feeling shared by many Americans who know that simply working hard isn't enough anymore. To get ahead, a 70-hour work week is the new standard. What little spare time is left is often divided up among relationships, kids, and sleep. And if you know what gets the biggest share of time not spent working on something, that thing is television. We're working ourselves to death in the U.S. and oftentimes it's under the illusion to get ahead with some things. Right now, we can't even leave work because we're tethered to work. We just left a seminar where they said that now 80% of all email is checked on mobile devices, meaning the cell phone. We carry our office with you. I was out fishing with a fellow once on the boat in the middle of the lake, and he had his pole in the water, and his phone rang every 5 minutes. I said, man, you can't even take a break away from work because your phone is just ringing out here on the lake. And a few days later, he called me up and asked, what can I do about high blood pressure? I said, first thing you do is cut that phone off. So it becomes a challenge with us. See, I have a cell phone policy. I tell people, say, look, do not call me on business on my cell phone unless just the building is on fire. If you don't, it will get out of control. And you will not be able to go anywhere without your phone. People who go, the one thing, my phone doesn't ring. Because I tell for, look, do not call me on my cell phone about business. When I'm in the office, that's when I talk. If I'm not in the office, I don't want to talk about business. Text me if you have to, but don't call me unless something is extremely, extremely urgent. My whole office understands and knows that. So this is a point, people. We've got to learn how to simply rest. My wife just started a policy with us recently when we go out together. She said no phones of any kind, no texting, no checking email, no surfing, no talking on the phone. She said, when you with me, I want you with me. That's what she said. She said, when you with me, I want you with me. And I told her, look, I said, when you with me, I want you with me because you sitting up there texting all the time. I said, I feel, so both of us, sometimes we couldn't even be with each other because we were, and some of you couples out there, look, when you all need, some of you all are in intimate positions sometimes, you have to say, hold up, my phone ringing. There are sometimes, people, you just need to shut that stuff off and take a break and take a rest.
Hallelujah. Brothers of the word, when the voice of God is heard, brothers of the word, there's a word from God for everyone. Brothers of the word, because brother, you need the word. Brothers of the word. Brothers of the word.